Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, Grammy Award-winning musician Darlene Koldenhoven joins me to talk about her soon-to-be-released memoir, Put Your Dress Down and Sing. Darlene talks about the book's origins and how she came to work with Sibylline Press. We go into the writing process, which only took a handful of months, and how she wound up having to cut almost 100,000 words from the manuscript. Darlene also shares a few stories in the book, such as how the title came to be, her many years in music, and the message she hopes to impart to readers. Citywide Blackout starts right now.
Welcome to Citywide Blackout, the place where writers, musicians, and creators from cities all over the world come to hang out, dive into their works, peel back the curtain on their creative process, and provide knowledgeable, actionable insight that you can apply to your own creative masterpieces. With decades of journalism, media, and entertainment industry experience, your hosts Max Bowen and Curtis Hughes provide fun, informative, and sometimes outrageously bizarre interviews that will keep you enlightened and entertained with a few F-bombs thrown in for emphasis. So put up your feet, grab a beverage, and let's go.
Darlene, I want to say first off, thank you so much for joining us for this episode, because just reading about your career, the many things you have done, I really love the fact that you're going to be capturing this in your soon-to-be-released memoir, Put Your Dress Down and Sing. What led you to decide, hey, yeah, it's time to kind of share my story with the rest of the world?
Well, since the 90s, people have been asking me to write a memoir because I've had such great stories in my life. And I said, well, I wasn't old enough then, but I am now. So a couple of years ago, I was invited to speak at a conference, and they asked me to speak at an author's breakfast. I said, well, I only have a music education book out. I don't have a book out. They said, no, just, we love you anyway. So I did. And everybody, came up to me afterwards like, wow, what great stories. Are you going to do a book? Then a publisher asked if they could do the book, and then, led from one thing to another. And here we are.
Wow. So you didn't even have to shop this around. They actually came to you and said, hey, can we publish your book for you?
Yeah, they did, but it wasn't quite the right fit. So then I went to the San Francisco Writers Conference, and I had an 8-minute one-on-one with Vicki DeArmond from Sibylline Press, who I signed with, and that's my publishing company now. I'm with them.
I like that.
So that happened. Yeah. So I started writing January of 24, and I had a lot of day planners, journals, programs. When I was a kid, I had kept it all because I thought maybe someday this would be important. So I kept everything. So I dug out all the boxes from the garage and went through all the stuff. So I did a lot of research, and I started writing, and I wrote 195,506 words in 4 months.
That may be some kind of a record.
That's what the publisher said. That's why the first publisher goes, we can't handle this. It's just too much for us.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
So it starts off.
So then I shrunk it down. Yeah. I shrunk it down.
I was going to ask about that, going from 195 to what is it now?
95.
You cut out 100,000 words.
Yeah. So I got enough for a whole nother book.
There we go. The sequel. I like this one. I like that.
Right.
So what was cut out? I mean, in order to kind of fit this much smaller size?
The woman that helped me edit it down is a dear friend of mine. And we decided, since we had a machete out so much of it, we would lop out the whole chapter about my dating life. We thought maybe it would be wise to let's cut that out. So that was one of the big, funny, hilarious chapters that we decided to cut out. So,
oh, there has to be a sequel book now.
Right.
I mean, you have the whole dating life, and I imagine you've met some amazing people over the years. So
yes, very much so.
Yeah. How was it, though, to have to cut that stuff out? Because I know sometimes it can be hard when you get this thing and say, hey, this is great. And then the editor says, well, let's see what we can do here.
Actually, it wasn't so bad for me.
Nice.
Because as a musician, I'm used to editing and producing and editing my own music, rewriting songs, and things like that. So I understood the process
Okay.
and just went at it, But it was tricky because some of the stories were like, wow, this is really good. But then I also became a better writer because of it.
Yeah.
And I think that cut out a lot of words too, is that I became very concise.
You have to
And
be. Yeah.
yeah, and I wrote it so it would be an easy read for people. It never gets bogged down in sentimentality or anything weird like that. It's just I wanted it to flow. There's a good balance, and the stories they just keep coming and coming, and from one chapter to the next. The chapters are also very short because I like to read short chapters.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, I got 10 minutes. Let me read a chapter.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's hard when you say, okay, I got 10 minutes. You look at the chapter. It's like, oh, this is 30 pages. Never mind.
Exactly. I mean, my longest page count of a chapter, I think, is maybe 6 pages. The rest of them are about 3, 4, maybe 5 pages.
Very cool. And how
That
does
keeps it moving.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
ahead.
So how does the book begin?
It begins with the day I was born. I was born a blue baby with a cord wrapped around my neck 3 times. And so they had to revive me. So I always say my birth was a near-death experience. Or I came in kind of pretty much gone, and then they revived
Wow.
me. So it's very dramatic. The whole book is full of very dramatic stuff as well
Yeah.
as really hilarious stuff. Yeah.
How was it to go about more or less reliving your life and its many experiences as you wrote this book?
Okay, that was the hard part. I thought writing was going to be the hard part. No, it was reliving your entire life, reliving my entire life, which I had gone through before with therapists in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go through it all over again, though. And at this age now, it's a whole different perspective. And the fact that I was going to be being vulnerable and putting everything out there for everybody to read. So that was a whole psychological adjustment I had to make because I wanted to tell my truth, demons and dragons be damned, and, let everybody hear the real story.
What would you say is your truth?
Pick a subject, then I can tell you what's true.
Okay. How about music? What is your truth regarding your career in music?
Well, I was born and raised. You have to know the background. So the book is in chronological order. So you'll get the impact of what comes, right? But I was born and raised in a very strict Dutch Calvinist, repressive, overly religious household. And I was only allowed to listen to or play religious or classical music. I was not allowed to improvise because being creative was a sin. And I was pretty severely punished. One time I was beaten unconscious for being creative. So when I talked about being in therapy, I was well into my adulthood when I said, I have to deal with this because it was so intense. So from there came the music. Now, I was always a very good singer because by the time I was 3, my mother and her father were singers, especially her father was a semi-professional singer. So they had me singing in tune and I could hold my own part in Row, Row, Row Your Boat by the time I was 3. So, I had all of that. But so the singing part was no problem. But allowing myself to become a composer or a songwriter, oof, that was tough because every time I tried to do it, I knew what would happen. It was like, don't do it. I could get punished, so it was a lot to overcome, but I managed to overcome it. So, because I really wanted to do it,
Yeah. Now, did this help you in terms of the writing? Did it kind of help you to confront what was obviously a very difficult past?
Yeah. Yes, it was to have to bring it up and deal with it as a senior citizen, very unique, let's say, emotional things came up. But I tell you, the interesting thing that happened to me, though, while I was writing this memoir, and my subconscious is now reprocessing all this stuff in my life. And sometimes you question, oh, I could have done it this way, or if I didn't have said that, or, stuff like that. But my subconscious would wake me up in the morning. I call them awakening dreams. And it would wake me up with all these melodies, right? And I would jump out of bed and go to the piano, turn on the voice memo on the phone, and record. And out came the whole A Grand Memoir album. That's why I call it a grand for grand piano, right? A grand memoir album. So all that music came to me while I was writing the memoir and my subconscious processing. Now, the interesting thing that happened when I did the audiobook, and I had no idea this was going to happen. And when I first laid some of the music behind the narration and I listened back to it, in this one scene about the death of my father when I was 14 and he was only 41, and it was a military funeral, things like that. And I had written this song called Lilac Tears. And I thought, well, because I had no plan for putting the music to the audiobook. I just knew I wanted to do that. So I said, oh, let's see how Lilac Tears fits. I put Lilac Tears in there and I wept because it was precisely, the phrasing in the music was precisely timed to my sentences, to what I was talking about. The style of things that happened in the music reflected things I was talking about, like when I finally broke down and the tears were dripping on my black satin bow on my dress, and then all of a sudden the music goes to this like dripping sound, and it just kind of blew me away. I thought, wow, the subconscious. And so throughout the book, that kept happening. I just would put a piece of music to it, a section of music to it. I thought, well, let's try this, try that. And everything just fit as if I had scored it intentionally like that. But I didn't. It just came from all the music that came during these awakening dreams and everything. And it just, the whole subconscious process, just manifested all this. So the audiobook turned out very, very interesting and very beautiful. And
Yeah.
there's some sound effects and different things in there too. But yeah, it was quite something.
I was really curious about the audiobook because I have like tons. I am a massive audio consumer. And I wanted to ask you about the experience of narrating. Was this your first time doing narration work?
No, I had done, the Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Yes.
I had done narrations in book 2 and book 3.
Okay.
Professionally, so this wasn't my first time, but it definitely was my first time with me narrating, engineering, producing, editing, mixing, mastering, sending it off. Yes, that was a huge, huge responsibility.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, isn't it? Going through the whole thing, right?
It is. But I have to say that some of the stories that are very funny in that book, and even though I knew they were coming and I'd read them out loud, it would crack me up. I'd start laughing and I'd have to re-record the section because I didn't want to have the laughing in there too.
Right, yeah. So it's like, no, serious time. No laughter. Do you feel that really changes the tone of the stories because you're reading it and putting your emotion and the memories are kind of coming back to you? Do you feel like that really changes like the feel of the book?
Yes, it definitely changed. Every story has its own unique delivery, and it's not monotone because my life was not monotone. So things like, for example, if a passage that would get more excited, I would speed up the tempo of the narration because that's what you do when you're telling somebody a story, right? Or like, if there was something sad, I would slow down the tempo. I'd change the tone of my voice and speak a little quieter, something different. But so throughout the book, it's just like having a conversation with me.
That's a great like tagline.
You think so? Okay, good.
Yeah. Put it in there.
I will.
Now, you mentioned the grand memoir, a grand memoir. How would you say this sort of ties into the book? How do the two kind of pair together?
Well, they pair together quite well, like I said, because they came through these awakening dreams. Some are modal, some are major keys, some are minor keys, some are more grand, some are more relaxing. And so that's how they kind of gel with the stories in the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think this soundtrack kind of stands apart from your other work because of the deep personal connection with your memoir?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really does. And it surprised me that it would. And like I said, I was very moved by the experience of listening back to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about music. I mean, I know other times in my life on different songs I've recorded on my albums, either vocal or instrumental. There's something, and I think musician listeners might know that this experience. Every once in a while, there'll be a passage, and it's a certain combination of notes and the frequencies. I'll take it to the physics of it. The frequencies do something to the receptors in the brain. And all of a sudden, it'll just be like you get the goosebumps, you get the chills, the hairs stand up on your arm, things like that. And not everybody gets that, you know, but a lot of people do get that. And I've seen that when I perform live and I'm singing to people, because when I sing to my audiences, it's not about me, it's about moving the audience. So I really direct my and project my energy to the audience, and it rides on the waves of the music. And I've seen many times audiences will just go, "Ah," like that, and everybody in the audience will do it, or almost everybody does it. I've seen people weeping, and even teenagers or college kids, they go, "What did you just do to me?" Because it's real profound. I've heard that from people. "What did you just do to me?" Especially college kids, because they had never had that experience.
Nope, definitely not.
So, yeah, so that's just part of how I perform my music and how I write my music. And I think also, comes through the book too.
Is there one track on the album that kind of stands apart for you in any significant way?
Yeah, there's one track called Wright's Romanza, as in Frank Lloyd Wright.
Mhm.
Okay. He was one of my favorite all time architects. It was the one track that I didn't compose. I saved it as the last. I mean, I recorded the whole album. There's like 10 songs. I recorded it in like 2 hours in one evening. And I saved this one for the last because it was improvised. And I just went back to those feelings I had and just opened myself and just let it rip. So that's the one track that's different from the others in that it's improvised.
Okay. I want to circle back a bit to the memories in this book. Of course, your career has spanned a lot of different things. I mean, you've been in this business longer than I've actually been alive. So that's significant right off the bat. I mean, just a few highlights. Of course, Grammy winner, 3-time nominee. You were in 2 Sister Act movies with Whoopi Goldberg. You were featured soprano soloist at Yanni live at the Acropolis. 1.5 billion with a B, folks. People watched this thing. What would you say were some of the more formative moments in your life that are captured in this story?
There's a few. The story when I was 3, which gave me the title to the book. When I was 19, I was a soprano soloist and sang a big opera aria with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in Orchestra Hall in Chicago. And that was the first time I had ever sung with a big orchestra before. And I remember walking from backstage when they opened the door, because it's my turn to sing. I remember walking through the string section until I got to the front to the conductor. And a very strange calm came open to me the minute I stepped through that door and put my foot on the stage. Calming feeling. And I used that feeling as like an anchor in my life. So when I did Yanni live at the Acropolis, and here and now I'm standing on stage at the Acropolis, right, looking up at the Parthenon and thinking about all the many orators, who have stood on that stage and spoke or performed before me. I always went back to when I was 19 and had that grounding feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do. And it was like, there were no nerves, no anxiety, no nothing. It was just like, okay, this is what I'm doing in the universe. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so I use that whenever since then to, perform.
That must have been fun to kind of go over again while you're writing. Like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what it felt like the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. I never forgot that feeling, cool. And then it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I kept feeling like that, it's great.
If someone were
But
to ask for a chapter recommendation, what would you
mm,
say?
there's a chapter in there that takes you from my whole life in Chicago
Mhm.
when I was trying to move out to Los Angeles. It was a second grade teacher because I was a music teacher in the Chicago suburban school system for 6 years. And one of the second grade teachers says to me, she goes, "Oh, you ought to be a studio singer." And I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Backup singer on albums. You hear singers in the background sing." Really? Wow. Never occurred to me because only could listen to religious or classical music, right? So now my ear starts listening to these. Now I'm in college. My ear starts, listening to Beatles, Led Zeppelin, all the other things, and there's background singers. Now I'm teaching school, and somebody tells me this. So I decided, and I had some now friends that were not in the Dutch circle, right? So it kind of changed my life in a way to even think about having the idea of moving to Los Angeles, the promised land of musicians, or creative people, right? And it just changed my life on how that happened. And so I wrote that chapter differently. I wrote it like Dear Diary. And I read it like I was just reading a diary too, the narration. And that's because when I was doing all that research, I found that journal where I had written every day who I met, and I was meeting all these famous people every day because of how I got to meet them and come out and what they said, different things like that. It was in detail. And I was like, wow, when I came across that, it's like score.
That's great.
Great.
That's really helpful.
So that was that. And then the next chapter right after that. So I'm on this big high from Hollywood, making all these connections with all the top people because I fell into it, so to speak. And then the next chapter is, well, I can't tell you the next chapter because the readers are just going to have to read it because it's pretty dramatic.
I
It's like
love that. I
going
love
from
that.
way up here to way down there.
All
It's
right.
like, wow.
One thing that I'm sure people are really curious about is your Grammy win. That I'm sure is in the book. And I want to ask about writing that particular part and what it was like to really experience the win all over again.
It was very exciting. It was very exciting
Yeah.
because, and I remember when you win the Grammy, then you go off stage and then you escorted into a press room, and the press gets to ask you questions. And I remember standing there, and I said, "Well, I'd like to thank Manhattan Transfer for not putting out an album this year, so the rest of us had a chance." That got a good laugh out of the
I'll
press.
bet. I'll bet.
Yeah, it was exhilarating. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
Okay. All right. Is there a message or a theme to this book that you're hoping the readers will take away?
Yes, there is a theme, and if I may, I kind of need to tell the story of how the title came through because the title "Put Your Dress Down and Sing" is kind of a message and a theme that runs through the whole book. So it happened when I was 3.5, and it was Easter Sunday morning. And my mother put me up on the platform at church to sing a song called "Low in the Grave He Lay." Such a song for a 3-year-old, right? But anyway, I thought she kept saying "low in the gravy lay." So I thought, oh, well, that's fun. I'll sing about laying in the gravy. Okay, right? So fine. So I get up on the platform. Now, singing was no problem. The song had tempo changes, mood changes, big high note finish, big range. Not a problem. But here I stand with my Easter dress, right? And I see 200 people staring at me. And what does a shy 3-year-old girl do? I took my skirt and I lifted it high over my head so no one could see me and I couldn't see them. but they certainly could see all of me. There I stood in all my glory with this dress up here. My mother rushes to the platform. Darlene, slapping her hands. Darlene, put your dress down and sing. Okay, so I pulled the dress down, turned to the organist who had already played the introduction twice, and I said, I'm ready now. And so I sang this song. And I thought to myself when I was singing it, oh, singing like this is so much fun, right? So since that moment, I had never been afraid to sing in front of an audience after that. So the lesson is, in the land of psychology, when you want to change your feeling, right? Shyness in my case, you have to take an action. Put your dress down. And the minute you you take an action, the action changes your feelings. And that theme runs throughout the book. Like when life gets tough, Darlene, just put your dress down and sing. And there's various little stories that weave throughout the book. And that's the message that I have for people, because I wrote the book not as just a purge of my life and a career, but to inspire, to motivate, to have people to, find their gifts and find their talents. The world needs everybody's gifts and talents. And to pursue that and to not give up. A lot of people, yes, you have to be reasonable, but a lot of people give up way too soon.
Mm.
And a lot of people aren't prepared. First of all, you got to be prepared. You got to do the work to change your feelings and be prepared, right? And that's, success is when preparation meets the opportunity. There's where the success comes. So that was the theme. So it's a very inspiring book, very motivating to people. Some reviewers that have read it, there's a couple things that are consistent. Resilience is one word I never thought of, but that kept coming up with reviewers. And also being motivated and inspired. They said, wow, I couldn't put this book down. And now I'm really motivated to get up and do something. Good. Then I've done my job. Thank you very much.
Exactly. What about for people who may feel like it's too late? May feel like, oh, I'm 45. It's too late for me to do music or write a book or what have you. What's your advice for someone like that?
It's never too late. The brain has plasticity. And it's really good for you to learn something, especially learn a musical instrument, learn how to sing, learn how to read music. I mean, there's all these, music is a language. It's kind of a much more fun language than learning how to speak some other language you don't know how to speak, So let's go with music, So no, I don't think it's too late. In my career, so right when I finally came out to California, I was 28 years old. I thought I had passed my prime already. I remember turning 25 and thinking, well, my career's over. That's over. I'll never be able to, get a record deal or be a singer or whatever, but I came out and I found, nope, that's a whole different story, because I did a lot of studio work where I sang in over 1,000 movies, records, commercials, albums. So when I was 50, in my 50s is when I pivoted to, well, I am going to start to write music and I'm going to start my own record label, because I was too old for any record label to sign me. And I was like, oh, yeah, watch this. So I just decided, start my own label. This is the 14th album on my label. Every album has won some kind of award. Some have won. I've got 2 that have got about 25 wins and 35 nominations of different kinds, Number 4 and number 8 debut on the Billboard Classical Crossover charts. Number 1 on New Age ambient world radio stations worldwide. I mean, I have a lot of awards, which validates my hard work, because I might not be paid money for that at 0.0006 cents a stream on Spotify.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So it's not a financial thing, but I have awards and things like that, so which validates my hard work. So that's what I'm saying. It's never too late. Never too late.
Someone's listening to this and they feel inspired to say, I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to be a musician. What's a good way to kind of kick things off?
Do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Research first. Allow yourself time to research. Talk to different people who are musicians that play different instruments. And there's a lot of different aspects of music or a career in music. There's books you can read that talk about the business of music and what's involved there. Talk to different teachers, get opinions from other musicians. Do your research first, see what the lifestyle is like, and talk to a variety of different people because everybody's life is different and you want to find all those little different idiosyncrasies and see. Then set aside some time to, let's say you're going to learn how to play piano, then set aside some time to learn. And the idea here is you take the action. You don't attach emotion to it. You just finish the task. What is your task today? My task today is to play the piano for a half an hour. Okay, just do the task. Don't fret about it. Don't have anxiety going into it. Oh, what if I don't feel like playing? No. To change your feelings, take the action. You just do the task and complete the task. And those little things. And then there's one little motto that I always love to say out loud that's very uplifting that I would love for your guests to practice out loud. Okay. To say, I have everything I need and good things are coming to me. And every time I say that, even now, I get the chills. Gives me the chills. With that attitude, I think you'll have fun and have success.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask about the process of what you had to learn to do this book. Did you just like dive right in and get to the writing process? Did you take classes, speak with other writers, editors to kind of figure out the path for this?
Good question. I just dove in and started writing. My high school English teacher said, Darlene, I just don't know what to do with you. Oh, you're never going to be a writer. And I looked at him and I said, well, then why don't you teach me how to write? You're the teacher. And he kicked me out. So
but that is his job. It's quite literally his job to teach you to write.
That's right.
Wow.
And he kicked me out. So I was like, okay, I'll show you.
Yeah, you did. You did.
And I did.
Yeah.
I did.
How about lessons learned in the writing process? What were some of the big things that you kind of came across that you feel like this is stuff I got to like write down right now because this is key information?
Yeah, I would write things down. When I had ideas, I would write the ideas down real fast. And, or I would, speak them into the voice memo on the phone when I'm out walking the dog or something and I have an idea. I'd capture all the ideas kind of the same way I do with music. You get an idea, you capture the idea, and then the skill comes, the writing skill, whether it's music or writing literature, the skill comes in. Now, how do you take these words and manipulate them? How do I take the notes and combine them to get the effect? So it's kind of similar with the words. How do you take all these things and put them together?
If you were to do another book, do you feel like it would go much more easy for you given this experience?
Yes, it would go a lot easier. A lot, now that I know what I'm doing.
I'm guessing there were some kind of pitfalls along the way.
Well, I found little things kept coming up in the writing that I had to learn to not be redundant, for one thing.
Yep, big one.
And to find, because I had to cut out so many words, I had to very quickly learn how to get the point across with a lot less words. And so I started to develop that skill, and like any other skill, the more you keep doing it, the better you get. I always say, whatever you spend the most time doing, that's what you get good at. So if you're spending a lot of time on social media, you'll get good on social media. But then the rest of your life is going to tank.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Your social life, not so much, but
if you want to learn to play an instrument, you got to spend time. You get good the more time you spend at it. And you have to persevere. You can't be giving up all the time. You got to persevere.
Absolutely. Especially because I imagine, if you never played the piano before, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a while before you get good enough to actually say, oh, now I'm going to write a song.
And learning how to play piano. And again, There are piano teachers that can teach you the traditional formal way of learning music. See this note on the paper, press this key. That's a memorization process that has nothing to do with improvising or playing by ear.
Mhm.
I can do both because I had to teach myself to play by ear because I wasn't allowed to when I was a kid growing up, right? Yeah, it's a different process, but you learn how to do that and start applying it to writing books as well as, writing music or whatever your field of whatever you'd like to do.
Well, Darlene, we are coming down to the end of this conversation, but a few more questions before we go. I want to ask about how it feels to have this thing done. So its release is only about not even 2 months away now at this point. August 7th is the big date. How does it feel to have it done? It's edited, it's packaged, and ready to hit the store shelves.
Well, this is always the sad part because, because I like the creative part. And the sad part is, okay, now I have to go out and sell this thing. Now I have to go out and promote the thing. So I have to, change my hat to project manager now at this point. It's a different project I have to manage and go out there. But the thing I love about actually going out there and doing it is meeting the people. If I'm going to bookstores and doing readings or signings and different, that's why I like performing. I like to meet people, talk to people, inspire people. That's what I love to do. Help people out. That's the good part. It does feel good to have it done. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'll bet, right?
Yeah.
Now, and like you said, of course, now it's time to shift to like promotion mode. What do you think works better these days? Do you find that you prefer that the in-person interactions, or is it more of like a digital plan?
You have to do it. You have to do everything nowadays. Yeah, I'm not a huge social media making content kind of a person, but I'm learning how to do it because I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's another skill I'll learn how to do, and people can laugh at me until I get really good. I don't care. I don't care because this is just something I have to do to make it work,
Okay. Once this book is out there, do we have book tours planned, signings? What's on the agenda there?
Well, I'm doing a lot of these lovely interviews, like with you. Thank you very much. That's been fun. Having a great launch party in Los Angeles on the 7th. Tickets are on Eventbrite. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun things happening there if you're in the area. I'm planning a tour and that's very difficult to try and get everybody to give their answers. You pitch out there and then you got to wait and all this follow up, and you're just hoping and praying that they're all gonna similar cities, or areas of the country are gonna group together. That's the most difficult thing is to organize it so that you're not zipping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth across the country. It gets very expensive.
Darlene, we are now at the end of this discussion. I want to say thank you so much for talking to me. It's been really cool to learn about you and the book and everything that went into this. It sounds like a real amazing experience. But looking back on this, what would you say was the best part about doing this, but also the more challenging part of doing this?
The best part is about finally seeing it all come together, that I can read it and I can say, this is good. And it's very satisfying to have it completed. So I hope your audience will pre-sale for the book is now and the CD is on pre-sale. And if people just go to the website, darlenekoldenhoven.com, they'll find out where to get the outlets for wherever they want to buy, whatever version they want to buy, or come to the party.
The big question to wrap this whole thing up, Darlene, is what is going to be next for you? Once the book is out there, what's your next mountain to climb?
I'm hoping and planning on, touring and continue performing and touring. What I'm doing in some places is like I'll play 4 or 5 tunes from the piano. I'll do some readings, mostly hilarious readings, of course, and then the hilarious stories from the book, and then be in conversation with someone, so that it's like a cultural experience. So I'm looking forward to doing a lot of that. That'll be fun.
That's a cool pairing.
Yeah, right. But the funny parts are pretty funny. So
I like that.
We're going to keep it. We'll keep it light when we get out there because, once they get the book, there'll be a lot of, I can't believe this happened.
I
And
can't.
wow, now she's got this. And whoa, now that. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
I'll bet it is. I'll bet it is. Well, Darlene Koldenhoven, thank you once again for joining me. I really appreciate this. And now for the folks at home, here's what you do. You go to, as we mentioned before, darlenekoldenhoven.com. Everything is there. Put Your Dress Down and Sing, the audiobook, the album, a grand memoir, and the album sheet music all released on August 7th. So, like you said, pre-order it. And certainly, Darlene, looking forward to the next time we have this conversation.
Oh, me too. I hope we do. You'll have to ask me, how did it go?
I plan to do just that. Thanks for listening to this episode. And please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. It ensures you never miss an episode and helps our ranking, allowing others to discover the podcast more easily.
If you really liked it, please share it with a friend and join our Citywide Blackout Facebook community, along with following us on Instagram at CitywideMax and at Citywide Interviews.
I'm your host, Max Bowen.
And I'm Curtis Hughes.
And we'll see you all next time.